Hello everyone and welcome to the Premiere Pro, where you'll learn everything you need to know to go from a 100% beginner to a professional level video editor. We'll release at least one new tutorial every week, and if there's anything you'd like to see covered in the future, let me know in the comments. In volume 14, I showed you how to stylize your footage. It's an important step if you're going to cut some dynamic videos. So we're actually going to call this volume 14.5 because that last video was kind of added into the mix. So now we are having some fun. So you guys stuck with us for a while. And by the way, shout out to all the new subscribers. Thank you very much for helping the channel grow. So now we're really going to start to get into some more dynamic editing, some more advanced skills. And by the end of this, we're going to have like a really nice professional video. So let's get going here. So basically, we're probably going to make this a two-parter because when you're cutting A-roll and cutting from interviews, you know, it's not something I want to gloss over. It takes a little bit of time in digging through footage. So this is going to be part one. We're going to pick up with part two. And then after that, we'll start cutting B-roll to go over the A-roll. So let's get started. So this is our first clip. So our production company that we run years ago, quite a few years back now, local minor league team here in Hartford, we interviewed one of their pitchers and we made a kind of little proof of concept video for them. So this is actually that raw interview from that video. And let's look at the raw assets here. So the first thing you want to do, I've done this just to save time. You want to find kind of the start point of your interview. And I actually just want you to listen to what we say, because these are important things. Cutting good video starts with doing it right on set. Starts with setting yourself up for success. So the first thing you want to do is you want to prep your subject for how this is going to go, how to answer the questions, and how to conduct themselves. So let's just listen here right before we start the questions. So you're not going to worry about the camera, you're just going to look directly at me. Okay. And what you want to do, try to repeat the question in your answer. Okay. Because the way it'll be cut, that way you'll know kind of where you're starting from. It's not recorded. It's not? No, I took a picture. The red button on the top, the red button at the top. How does it start going? Yeah. Got it? So if you're here, we did a couple things. We told the subject, make sure that you answer the question or you repeat the question within the answer. And the reason is the way we cut these interviews, the interviewer is there to evoke a response, but in a lot of situations, you're not necessarily going to hear the interviewer. So out of context, just hearing a response to a question, it cannot make a lot of sense. It may not cut well. But if you have them just repeat the question, so for instance, how long have you been playing baseball? If someone just says 10 years, out of concept, that means nothing. But if I say, how long have you been playing baseball? And they say, well, I've been playing baseball for about 10 years. That's going to cut much better together out of context of hearing what the interviewer says. Sometimes you'll hear it, but in more often than not, you're not going to hear that interviewer. And then if you actually hear, we checked with our other tech to make sure that the other cameras are rolling, that all the machinery, the audio equipment, that everything's going before we start. Because we've learned from experience, and this is a mistake you don't want to make. You get through an interview, you get great stuff, and you get to the end and go, we weren't recording audio. The B cam wasn't recording. The A cam stopped. So you need to not only check at the beginning of your interview, but check throughout your interview that things are working quite well. And we actually did some stuff today where we did the same thing. And we looked up and said, oh, we only have 5 minutes left on this card. And we wrapped up the interview so we didn't lose anything good. So let's get going with cutting this. So the first thing can you do is just introduce yourself and say what position you play for the Yard Goats?
Yes. My name is Matt Pierpont. I'm a relief pitcher for the Hartford Yard Goats.
Okay, so that's a pretty much standard, any documentary style interview you're going to start with, this is my name and this is what I do. And then a really good way that you want to get through this quickly so you're not taking forever, you can use the JKL keys, and that's going to allow you to use the keyboard to move through and quickly start, stop, move forward, move backwards, so you're not taking forever. So J is going to move backwards. K is going to stop it, or space bar, and then L is going to move forward.
Yeah.
So I want to stop it here. I want to try to use the arrow keys now. And I want to go right to that first syllable that I hear. And then I want to go back a few frames, maybe 2 or 3 frames. Let's try 3. Hit the I for N, set the end point. I'm going to play.
My name is Matt Pierpont. I'm a relief pitcher for the Hartford Yard Goats.
And we're going to stop it there. That's our first clip we're going to cut. I'm going to hit O for out, and then I'm going to drop this to the timeline. Now, here's what you can do. You can drag it with the mouse, but what I like to do, and as you learn to do this more, this is really going to, so I'm going to undo, Command Z or Control Z. What you really want to do is use your keyboard commands, because you'll get into a rhythm with this where you can go through these interviews and cut them very fast and cut your select footage out. Because if you really sit there and you do your endpoints here and you drag and drop, that's just going to keep adding motions and adding to your time. And in these type of projects, you may have an hour of interview footage. That's going to make the difference between sitting there for 45 minutes to an hour or sitting there for 3 hours trying to cut through interviews. And then another important thing I want to say, I just said selected footage. So the first stage of cutting A-roll, you don't know what you're going to use yet in the final video. You need to see the totality of everything that you have. So step number one, you're going to select anything that you plausibly think might make it into the video. It doesn't mean it will. It means you're going to select this, organize it on your timeline. And from that point is when you're going to want to narrow down what's going to make it to the video. So we're just going to go through this clip here and we're going to do our selects. And we're going to see what we like and what we might want to use. So the first clip here we want to use. So what we can do is just make sure that window is highlighted. And if you actually hit the comma key, it's going to drop it right to the timeline. But your window is still highlighted here. So you still have the JKL controls and the in and out controls. And what happens is you'll get into a rhythm and you'll start really selecting clips, dropping them, selecting, dropping, and you're going to save yourself a lot of time. So let's keep going.
Cool. And you started playing baseball at a really early age. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, I want to go a few frames before that first sound. So I hear it there. Let's go 1, 2, 3. I for in.
Yeah, I was born into a family that loved baseball.
Now, what happened there? Again, out of context, he said, yeah. So we maybe don't want to hear that. So why don't we go back to our endpoint? You can hit up arrow to go back to your endpoint, and we want to go past that, yeah. So let's use the right arrow. So we want to kind of get that I, and we might have to experiment a little. So he's kind of going to I there. So let's hit the I and see if we got it. And we'll hit play.
I was born into a family.
So it's not too bad. Let's listen again.
I was born into a family that loved baseball. I had an older brother, older sister, 4 and 2 years older than me. So as soon as I was born, I was around the game and started playing with my brother probably when I was 3 or 4 years old and got into T-ball like 4 or 5 years old. So started up really, really young.
So I'm going to stop it there. I'm going to go back a few frames, hit the out, hit the comma. We have our next clip. We're going to keep going here. Now, he was kind of long-winded there, so I'm selecting that thinking some of that may make it in, but when I get to my timeline, I'm probably going to cut that down a little to be a little bit more streamlined. But that isn't the next step. The first step is we want to select our footage and see what we may want, and then we're going to refine it later. With editing, you always want to kind of move in steps. You don't want to select the footage, start cutting that, start cutting your video, and then go back to another clip and select it. That's going to be very inefficient. You want to kind of import your footage all at once, then you want to select it all at once, then you want to cut it all at once, then you want to B-roll all at once. And as we get through this, that'll make a lot more sense. So let's keep going.
And you said this is really a family affair. This was like a family all-in kind of thing. So what was that like bonding with your family as you grew up on baseball?
Okay, so let's find the beginning of that.
It's been great. I've been very blessed to have a family that's so supportive.
So again, it's been great. Maybe I've been very blessed is a good place to start, because that's when he starts talking about his family.
It's been great.
So we want to find that I. So you'll find the more you edit, our syllables as humans, and especially in English, we speak fast. It's like milliseconds between words. So sometimes in the editor, you have to just chisel and carve out that exact word. And you may or may not get it right the first time. And that's why we can go frame by frame. So I'm going to hit the I here and let's hear how close we got to the word we're looking for.
I've been very blessed.
Okay, so perfect. So you hear how there was a little something before. Listen.
I've been very blessed.
So we want to get rid of that. We just want to get to I. So we're just going to go by frame. That sounds like it right there. You hear that? I'm going to hit I and let's see what it sounds like.
I've been very blessed to have a family that's so supportive. You know, my brother played in college and he was close to home, so we got to go watch his games all the time. And growing up, we were always at the ballpark all the time. So it was every level I've played at, my family's been right there with me. They'll be out here in a couple weeks to watch me play, so they really enjoy baseball and love watching me do what I love.
Okay. So here's another thing. I hit the pause or hit the space bar there, and look at that, his eyes closed. So usually we want to try to eliminate that if possible. So we're going to use the back arrow and see if we can do it before, not get to the part where he's talking. So back arrow, and there you go. See that? That looks much better. We'll hit the out, we'll hit the comma, and we're going to try to do our next clip.
Cool. And you've played, you're not just a pitcher, you've played a lot of different positions.
Yeah, so in college, I actually went to college to play the infield and pitch a little bit, but was recruited mostly to be an infielder. And quickly when I got to college, I realized that that wasn't my best position, so it took a couple years, but after my junior year, I started pitching only and focusing on that, and been doing that ever since.
Now, here's a very common thing that you'll see in interviews, and again, when you edit, you start to detect patterns in ways that we speak that we don't really consciously realize. So he kind of said a few things, but then in that last sentence, he kind of summed the whole thing up. And you'll find that when you cut interviews, you'll find people will usually talk around stuff, and then they'll give you two sentences that say the whole thing they just said. So we want to get those last couple sentences because that's a little bit more eloquent and concise. So let's listen. I'm going to hit J to back up. Let's try to find that.
So it took a couple years, but after my junior year, I started pitching only and focusing on that, and been doing that ever since.
So really, after my junior year, that kind of says everything that he said in those two sentences. So we're going to find that.
After my junior year, I started.
We'll go back a little farther.
Best position, so it took a couple years, but after my junior year,
So what I'll do too, do you notice I hit the I before we hit it? If I know I'm getting close, I'll hit I so that if I miss it, I don't have to keep going farther back to find it. So now I'm closer.
But after.
But after. So we just want after. So you hear how we got to find the beginning of the word. So let's hit I right there.
After my junior.
So did you hear that? How we had that little bit of the last word? So we'll hit up again to go to the end point. We'll go arrow one more forward. Hit I again.
After my junior year, I started pitching only and focusing on that, and been doing that ever since.
And we're going to stop there, hit out. You see how we get a little rhythm with this? Now we're going back to the timeline. And so let's look at the clips that we have so far.
My name is Matt Pierpont. I'm a relief pitcher for the Hartford Yard Goats. I was born into a family that loved baseball. I had an older brother, older sister, 4 and 2 years older than me. So as soon as I was born, I was around the game and started playing with my brother probably when I was 3 or 4 years old, and got into T-ball like 4 or 5 years old. So started up really, really young. I've been very blessed to have a family that's so supportive. My brother played in college, and he was close to home, so we got to go watch his games all the time. And growing up, we were always at the ballpark all the time. So it was every level I've played at, my family's been right there with me. They'll be out here in a couple weeks to watch me play, so they really enjoy baseball and love watching me do what I love. After my junior year, I started pitching only and focusing on that, and been doing that ever since.
Okay, so what you can see we've already done, even in that preliminary step, we've kind of tightened up what he said a little bit and made it a little bit more refined. And we'll keep doing this process. And then once everything that we like is on the timeline, that's when we're going to start to chop it up and really cut it down. Because, a video like this may be 3 or 4 minutes, and you can see we already have 48 seconds. So there's a lot of magic we have to work, but we're telling a story. So before we can tell the story, we have to know all the elements we have, and then we can start to shape those. So let's do a couple more here. So we'll hit the space bar.
And you had a pitching coach, or you had a coach that steered you in that direction, right?
Yes, my college pitching coach, Clint Chrysler. We're still very, very close. We talk a lot, but honestly, if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be here today. He really taught me a lot. He played minor league baseball for a long time.
So why don't we start on my college pitching coach? So we're going to use Jay to go back. So sometimes you just want to listen to see if what they end up saying is what you want to use before you decide to use it. So let's hit I, see where we are.
Still very, very close. We talk a lot.
So go back a little bit more.
Yes, my college pitching coach.
So we're going to go past yes and go to college pitching coach. So we'll use the arrows. So we'll see that. Let's go a couple frames before that. See what we get.
My college pitching coach.
So if you listen,
my college pitching coach.
There was that little click right before he said my
college pitching coach.
We want to get rid of that. So we'll hit up, hit the right arrow, hit the I for in. We're just going to move it a frame, and that'll probably get rid of that. Let's listen.
My college pitching coach,
there you go.
Clint Chrysler. We're still very, very close. We talk a lot, but honestly, if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be here today. He really taught me a lot. He played minor league baseball for a long time and really got me headed in the right direction and got my foot in the door. And luckily, I've had a lot of great coaches since then to, help just me keep getting better.
Okay, so we'll stop there. Hit the O for out. Now, this is a very good point. This playhead is not at the last clip, so we don't want to hit the comma. We don't want to insert that edit in the middle of our previous clips. So I'll hit undo. You want to make sure it's where you want that next clip to go, because wherever the playhead is where it's going to drop the clip. So now if we use the comma, there you go. We'll just do a couple more here. So JKL also can go forward and back. J is back, L is forward. Every time you press them, they're going to go a little faster. So you can really fly through these, and this is how you can really get quick at this. So if I knew, oh, I wanted something 3 minutes from now, I can hit L and hit it again, and hit it again, and hit it again, and hit it again, and we're moving. I can stop, listen.
It's been everything to me.
And I could say, no, I want to go back further. I can hit J, and again, keep going. So once you get comfortable with this, you are going to fly through this process. So let's choose one more for part one.
So you were an Atlanta Braves fan?
Yes.
And who was your favorite player?
Chipper Jones always been my favorite player. I think my brother, it was his.
So that's good. Even though he doesn't say the Braves, any baseball fan, you say Chipper Jones, he's going to know the Atlanta Braves. So basically, we're going to just find the part where he says Chipper Jones, and that's where we're going to start our in point. So you hear there, we said, make sure everything's still looking good. Check throughout your interview. Make sure the sound is good. Make sure your levels are good. Make sure your shots look good, because I can't tell you how many times earlier in our careers we do that. We get through an interview, we're excited. We get home and we find out audio dropped out, battery died, camera died, something went wrong. Check throughout your interview, and that's how you're going to have a stress-free edit.
You were an Atlanta Braves fan?
Yes.
And who was your favorite player?
Chipper Jones.
So we're going to find that C, so I'm back arrowing. And when there's a little silence before, I can go back a couple frames. I for in. See this rhythm?
Chipper Jones always been my favorite player. I think my brother, it was his favorite player first, and I always wanted to do everything that he wanted to do. So growing up, the Braves were on TBS a lot growing up, so was able to watch a lot of their games. And, I played shortstop, I played third base, so I, always wanted to be like Chipper Jones and loved watching him play. He was just an incredible player. So, yeah, he's been my favorite for a long time.
Okay, so that's a really nice clean ending. We're going to hit the O for out, comma, back down. And so this is something like, there's more interview, but let's just say for a moment, I'll hit the minus just to kind of zoom out a little. Let's say for a moment, our producer said, we need like a minute and a half, nice tight piece here. So you would look at this, and assuming that you had everything that you needed, this is where you would start to kind of cut down, and you want to leave some spaces. So you don't necessarily want a minute and a half of talking for a minute and a half video, because what you have is no silence. You have no pacing. And we talked about pacing in earlier videos. It's very important. So this would be a good place to start cutting down and tightening up some of these original clips. And then that would be the stage which you would want to start to incorporate your B-roll, your music, maybe some sound effects, maybe some graphics. And that's when it'll really start to come together. So this is going to be the first one where we really start getting into the nitty gritty of these different stages of editing something like this. And by the end of it, we're going to have like a broadcast quality, really nice sports documentary piece. So we're going to stop here for part one. In part two, we'll probably select some more clips ahead of time to save some time for the video, because you kind of see the way to navigate this window now. You know the keyboard commands, the in and outs. You've kind of learned the essence of cutting this A-roll, cutting these interviews. We're going to have some pre-selected clips on the timeline, and we're really going to get into refining the clips, kind of loosely balancing the audio so it's audible while you're adding some other elements. And then we're going to start getting into some B-roll and some other elements. So that'll be coming up. The cutting of the trimming down of the clips, that'll be part 2. The video for how to edit B-roll is when we're really going to start adding more elements. So there's kind of a lot of good stuff to come up in this series. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and stick with this, because by the end of this, we're going to have a really nice piece, and you're going to have some tricks under your belt that you're going to be able to really edit some nice stuff for your clients and nice stuff for potential clients and show them that you are a pro video editor. For more Premiere Pro tutorials, click the like button, click the subscribe button, and make sure to ring the notification bell. And as soon as the next volume is uploaded, you'll find the link in the description.